It's very early morning on the 9th of February 1855, and we're in a small town called Topsham in Devon, England. Over the last few days, a huge amount of snowfall has covered the surrounding area. Residents are housebound, they're keeping warm, and awaiting this blizzard to pass. A local man named William Taylor is suddenly awoken from a deep sleep by the sound of a two-legged creature walking. But these steps aren't in his house, and they're coming from above him. They don't sound human. Something is on his roof. William reaches towards his bedside and grabs his portable oil lamp. He primes the wick, lights the lamp, and he scurries off downstairs to investigate. Approaching his front door very slowly, he opens it, exposing the snow outside. There in the snow, William sees a line of hooves, each one at 8.5 inches apart, and they appear to have been made by a two-legged animal. These tracks, however, are smouldering in the snow, as if they've been cut by a hot iron. The tracks have come over from the rooftop of the opposite house, and then appear to have travelled vertically down its walls, across the pavement, and up the wall of his home. William Taylor tentatively steps out of his house. He turns, and he raises his lamp further upwards. He sees movement. He steps forward, now raising his lamp a little higher, and then from the very rooftop, hiding in the darkness, he sees a disgusting creature. This creature appears to be glowing in flame, and slowly it turns around and notices William. It looks him in the eye, opens its jaws exposing ghastly fangs, and snarls at him, before accelerating over the surrounding rooftops and disappearing off into the darkness. Behind him, the creature leaves markings that smoulder in the snow. William now stands paralysed with fear, looking upwards. He whispers to himself, "What the hell was that?" Welcome to Mysteries Retold. This week's mystery takes place in 1855 and happened across the southern coast of a county called Devon in England. Over the snowy landscape covering over 100-mile radius, said to be ranging from the town of Totnes through to the village of Littleham, strange markings appeared overnight, and those markings resembled no animal known to man. These markings were so strange that locals claim the Prince of Darkness, Satan himself, was within our world, looking for something, or someone. Across this 100-mile radius, the tracks were found across roads, going through fields, walking vertically up walls, across rooftops, and hopping over rivers, specifically the River Exe. Now at its widest point, the River Exe is 2 miles wide, and these accounts stated that the strange tracks stopped on one side of the River Exe, only to appear on the other side, and then continue onwards. One farmer famously recounted the devil's footprints stopping on one side of a haystack, only to restart on the other. The stacks were untouched, as if this beast had hopped over and carried on its journey. As well as the strange location of these tracks, they appeared to move in a conscious manner. The tracks were found to go directly up to windows of homes, circle the perimeter, and then move off away from the scene. It really was as if something or someone was investigating. Now these strange prints looked as if they'd been created by hooves, but were, in all other respects, utterly inexplicable. So these hooves themselves seemed similar to a donkey, and each measured somewhere between 3 and 4 inches long. Each print was between 8 and 16 inches apart, and the steps appeared to have been left by a two-legged animal. It is reported that these tracks were not always the same. The majority of the time they were similar to a donkey, but sometimes looked more like a horse. And across this snowy landscape, there are multiple reports that these hooves looked as if they'd been cut into the snow and ice by hot iron. These strange tracks were found over miles and miles of countryside, and throughout villages. The odd trail was said to range from Totnes to Littleham, which covers about 100 miles of Devonshire countryside. Now these tracks were supposedly followed by farmers and their dogs, and around a place called Dawlish it led the dogs into a thick thicket. The farmers were hoping to flush out whatever was in the undergrowth, but once they hit these thickets, the dogs would not go anywhere near them. They retreated, and they were howling in fear. It was after these incidents, and because the mystery had seemed to span such a large distance, rumours quickly spread across the county, and then across the whole of the UK. And it wasn't long before the media was covering the story nationwide. In 1855, an issue of Bell's Life published the following story in a column called Weekly Dispatch.
It appears on Thursday last night there was a very heavy snowfall in the neighbourhood of Exeter and the south of Devon. On the following morning, the inhabitants of the above towns were surprised at discovering the footmarks of some strange and mysterious animal endowed with the power of ubiquity, as the footprints were to be seen in all kinds of unaccountable places, on the tops of houses and narrow walls, in gardens and courtyards, enclosed by high walls and palings, as well as in open fields. The superstitious go so far as to believe that they are the marks of Satan himself, and that great excitement has been produced among all classes may be judged from the fact that the subject has been descanted on from the pulpit. The impressions of the foot closely resembled that of a donkey's shoe, and measured from 1.5 inches to, in some instances, 2.5 inches across. Here and there it appeared as if cloven, but in the generality of the steps the shoe was continuous, and from the snow in the centre remaining entire, merely showing the outer crest of the foot, it must have been concave.
Along with these news reports, almost 100 years later, in 1950, letters and drawings detailing the mystery were uncovered for the first time. It was found that several priests had written to Reverend H.T. Ellicombe, who was the vicar of Clyst St George, and they detailed the phenomenon in various Devon parishes. A letter had also been written and illustrated to London News with tracings of these footprints. All of these reports had strictly been marked with "not for publication." Now, over the following weeks and months, fear had gripped much of the area, and many did believe that Satan himself was wandering the county of Devon. Eventually, this hysteria died down, and the passage of time helped lift the fear. But today, all these years later, it leaves us with a fascinating mystery. So since 1855, there hasn't been a concrete answer as to why these footprints appeared in the snow of Devon, but there has been much theory. These theories carry on to the present day, and one of the first theories that was put forward was badgers. That's right, the simple badger. In March of 1855, Professor Owen claimed the prints were left just by a hungry badger. Professor Owen claimed it was the only animal that they really had in the wild that was of such a size. He also stated that it does leave footprints larger than you'd expect from its size. He suggested that the sheer number of footprints was indicative of activity of several animals. He goes on to state that it was improbable that only one badger should have been awake and hungry at the time, and added that the animal was a stealthy prowler and most active and enduring in search of food. Now, I guess this is a theory, but I'm not sure it matches up with the reports. Could these smouldering footprints really have been caused by a badger? Probably not, but we have an even stranger theory, and this is that it was caused by a kangaroo or kangaroos. Now, kangaroos are not native to England, and you just not see them in the wild. Well, another letter from Reverend Musgrove was found that he'd sent to the Illustrated London News on the 3rd of March 1855. His letter stated,
I found a very apt opportunity to mention the name of kangaroo, in allusion to the report then current. I certainly did not pin my faith to that version of the mystery, but the state of the public mind of the villagers, dreading to go out after sunset, under the conviction that this was the devil's work, rendered it very desirable that a turn should be given to such a degraded and vitiated notion, and I was thankful that a kangaroo served to disperse ideas so derogatory.
Now, other skeptics of the popularised Satan theory had tried to explain the events away with other animals. Hopping mice was another one put forward. Now, this theory says that at least some of the prints, including some of those found on the rooftops, could have been left by hopping rodents such as wood mice. The prints left behind after a mouse leaps resembles that of a clove-hooved animal, due to the motions of its limbs when it jumps. Dash stated that a theory that the Devon prints were made by rodents was originally proposed as long back as March 1855. In that paper's 10th of March 1855 issue, Thomas Fox, a brewer and a brickmaker, submitted illustrations of a rodent's tracks in varying snow depths, as well as a diagram for how rodents' hind and forelimbs create a hoof-shaped print. Again, it's a theory, but I'm not so sure about this one. Is it plausible that a hopping mouse would fool folk across an 100-mile radius? Well, this next theory is perhaps the most accepted of them all. And that is all of this was caused by an experimental balloon or experimental weather balloon. That's right, it's our old friend, the weather balloon. Now, this seems the most commonly accepted theory or explanation. And any time something strange happens, it seems the official word on such events is the old weather balloon. Well, here we go again. This theory, though, is plausible. So it says that an experimental weather balloon had been worked on at the Devonport dockyard, and some negligence, along with the high winds that night, caused the balloon to be released by mistake. This balloon had left the mysterious tracks by trailing two shackles at the end of its mooring rope. As the balloon floated off, caught in the high winds of the storm, these shackles bounced across the ground, creating the image of hooves being burned into the ice. Now, the source of this theory is fairly credible, and it comes from a local man called Major Carter, whose grandfather had worked at Devonport at the time. Carter claimed that the incident had been hushed up because the balloon also wrecked a number of conservatories, greenhouses and windows before finally descending to Earth in Hoynton. Now, this could explain the shape of the print, but skeptics have questioned whether the balloon could have travelled such a random zigzag course without its trailing ropes and shackles being caught in a tree or some other obstruction. Anyway, here we are, all these years later, with a handful of theories, but nothing was ever proven. Now, some investigators are sceptical that these tracks even extended for more than 100 miles. One of the major arguments here is that no one would have been able to follow their entire course in a single day. And another reason for the scepticism, as Joe Nickell indicates, is that eyewitness descriptions of the footprints varied from person to person. Now, could these events just be the results of markings of animals, rumours, hysteria, religious fear, and hearsay? Well, to be honest, probably. But not necessarily. It was only 15 years earlier, in 1840, that the Times reported something very similar. Their newspaper report stated the following.
Among the high mountains of that elevated district where Glenorchy, Glenlyon and Glenorchy are contiguous, there have been met with several times, during this and also the former winter, upon the snow, the tracks of an animal seemingly unknown at present in Scotland. The print of the foot in every respect is an exact resemblance of that of a foal of considerable size, with this small difference perhaps that the sole seems a little longer or not so round. But as no one has had the good fortune as yet to have obtained a glimpse of this creature, nothing more can be said of its shape or dimensions. Only it has been remarked, from the depth to which the feet sunk in the snow, that it must be a beast of considerable size. It has been observed also that its walk is not like that of the generality of quadrupeds, but that it is more like the bounding or limping of a hare when not scared or pursued. It is not in one locality only that its tracks have been met with, but through a range of at least 12 miles.
I hope you've enjoyed the fascinating tale of the Devil's Footprints as much as we have. But what are your thoughts on this tale? Nothing but an old legend? Or is something dark lurking in the countryside? Well, I'll leave you with these thoughts. As outrageous as some of these tales sound, it's by far the first time something like this has been reported, nor will it be the last. From the UK to the rest of Europe, Europe to the Americas to Asia, and far, far beyond, sightings of goblins, ghouls, devils and demons, beasts and monsters plague every corner of the globe. Let's take the story of Spring Heel Jack from London, the Hopskin Goblin encounter from Kentucky, the Michigan Dogman sightings, the countless Chupacabra stories, Bigfoot, the Sasquatch, the Mothman, Yetis, abominable snowmans, the Jersey Devil, the Bunyip from Australia, the Ogopogo in Lake Columbia, the Thunderbird, the Loch Ness Monster, the Kraken. Now, are all of these stories just hysteria, or is there some truth in them somewhere? Now again, ask yourself, could there really be something out there just lurking in our countryside? I hope you guys are still enjoying the channel, and if you are, please hit that like and subscribe. Now take care of each other, and remember, next time it snows, maybe just lock your doors. The devil could be on the rooftop. Good night, folks.